Hello. Welcome to day 8. Exciting. Almost 10 days. Looking forward to this, getting some of this stuff done today. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, so last time we kind of hit a roadblock because we ran into a bug with Bevy, unfortunately. And today we're going to finish working around that bug. Just make sure sound looks good, and it does. Sweet. Yeah, so today we're going to work around that bug by changing how we do things. Instead of trying to hide sort of these visible rendering objects, we're going to just straight up remove them when our game state changes, when our sort of scene changes. This is sort of one area where I wish Bevy gave you a little bit more control over how it all worked. Not that you don't have control, but out of the box control, I guess I should say. It seems to me like we should be able to switch scenes and preserve entities in a scene in memory, but that doesn't seem to be the case. There's not even really a concept of scenes per se in Bevy. There kind of is, but not in the way that I was thinking there was, which is fine. So today we're basically going to work around that by creating our own sort of really basic scene manager using our game state that we already have implemented. So the first thing to do is to just remove the update visibility. We're just going to completely remove that. And we're also going to remove the update camera for state as well, because we're going to end up removing the camera and when we go to the new scene. We're also going to create a folder called scenes. We'll move that into the gameplay. Alright, cool. In fact, we're gonna do this a little bit differently too. I rename this to battle. Don't really need the sub things there anymore. Cool. Get rid of that. We're still airing because battle doesn't exist. It's not like that anymore. Actually, have scenes battle. I meant to do a run, but that's fine. Yeah, all this active camera stuff can get deleted. Let's see. Alright, so when we switch to the battle view, do we have an on enter? No, because that happens in the input. So instead, one thing we could do is move this to its, like, it's already its own scene. How do we want to do this? Not its own scene, I mean its own system. I think we'll just keep it like this for right now. But I think we could do like an on enter, like setup scene, like setup battle scene. But we'll have to like still save some data about the battle ahead of time when you like run into something on the map view. Yeah, so mostly all this should still work how it was before. There's our player. Right there, cool. And the battle screen doesn't do anything right now. That's okay. We're gonna fix that today. So let's go to new scene, map, view. Bring that in here. And I don't think we really need the, I'll just call it spawn here. Simplify these names a little bit. Simple is better. Alright, and then we want to, let's see here. Trying to think of what I should do next. Probably start moving a lot of the map stuff into here. Not moving it into there, but sort of separating out the generation stuff from the rendering stuff is what we need to do here. And the way we're going to do that is we're just going to keep the same sort of tile map. And maybe even just, how do we want to do it? Copy it? Maybe we'll just keep the tile. Because this doesn't really derive anything that's going to be useful for us. Like, I can't clone it, so I didn't expect to be able to, but yeah, essentially we want to do this in a slightly different way. It's going to need like a tile map file. And in it, our own tile map component that gets attached to an entity. This is purely just for the generation of the map. And then for other things like enemies and spawn points and anything else that we add sort of on top as just sprites, what we will want to do is just remove the component for rendering, I think, and then just re-add that component. Because we still want all that data to be around and accessible when you're in the battle view. The map data, not so much. But we still need to maintain the map's data. Just thinking about this, we could just keep it around and render on top of it. That just means it'd be rendering behind the scenes. We could switch the visibility just for the tile map. It's sort of like a cheat. I mean, it's just like right now our data is really tied to the tile map rendering stuff, and there's no like easy way around that. We could look into how to despawn chunks though, because unless you call the spawn chunk command, it's not going to spawn it. So if when we switch to the battle view, we despawn the tile map chunk and then we respawn them afterwards, that might work fairly well. And then most of this stuff can stay the same. So we'll have like a... How do we want to do this? Because it's like on enter, but like... Oh, wait. Yeah, that works, because we'll just move the logic for that into... Yeah. Oh, this doesn't return anything. Alright, getting the Bevy mindset today. So we'll need our tile map, and I'll have to get it similarly to how we got it here. We really only have one, so it might be worth it to just... Well, we can't really store it as a resource, but... Alright, and then... the tile map prelude. And then we have to get that half... What is it? Half map width. Some of this we should dry up at some point too, just so that we're not repeating ourselves so much. Yeah, so anytime we enter into the map view, we spawn the chunks, and then just call it destroy. Same thing. I believe we can despawn chunk. Yeah. And then in our stuff here, we can say, don't really have an on enter map view yet, so let's add one here. And this stuff we have to clean up too at some point. It's so much to do. You're making a game. Alright, so we don't care about that. It's on enter. With system, gameplay, scenes, map view. And of course, I forgot to make them public. Alright, and then we need another one for when you're exiting that game state. Destroy. Oh, we actually don't need those there anymore. Cool. Alright, and then if we hit P, nice, there we go. Okay, so that's a little cleaner. We still have some stuff we gotta clean up though. Like for instance, we're not switching our camera anymore. And that's because we have to delete the old one and recreate it. So that is also pretty easy to do. What we're gonna do is just take this here. Where am I here? So we create the camera here instead. To bring in our code. Okay, so now we create the, basically when we enter into that map view state, we create our camera, we create the tile map. And then I think we need a new resource too. We're just gonna throw it in here for right now. Just a simple current camera struct, and let's actually, yeah, that should be fine. Okay, and then we need to insert that in as a resource. Actually, and it needs to be a optional entity because we might not have one. And then we want to implement default for this. Should be able to do like this, which I think just means this is going to be none. Yeah, and then make that public. Okay, so essentially what we have now is a resource that lets us say what the, we don't even care what this is anymore. Camera entity. So we have a resource that lets us basically tell what the tell like the current game state, what the current camera is, and then it's just a way of keeping track of it while we're in that game state, and then when you leave we can destroy it and empty it out. So yeah, res mute. Sorry for clicking around everywhere. I think this is, is it current camera like that? I guess it is. Alright. And then if we need to, sorry. If we need to, we can also access the camera via that resource, although I don't think that's necessary. And then down here we can say, copy this part. And then we want to like basically despawn it, so we'll probably need commands, I'm guessing. And then we will do Dot. You might be able to do it right on the entity itself because I don't see a despawn here. Oh, it's probably like this, isn't it? Current camera dot camera drain. Drain is still a thing, right? I think that's means what I think it does. Come on, give me IntelliSense. Despawn. There we go. And just in case, we'll also despawn recursive. Just make sure we get rid of everything. I guess drain is not what I was thinking of. Take? Yeah, take is the right one. I was using active cameras, but there's a couple of reasons why I don't like it. And I want to just despawn the camera and recreate it when I switch game states. But yeah, I originally had that and it did work. The code's kind of weird. You had to like loop through and clear out all the camera entities in active cameras. Like there wasn't a clear way of like saying here's the active camera. I think some refactoring work needs to get done on that. But yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. I kind of like just keeping track of it myself though for now. Sweet, and then yeah. So now our cameras are switching back the way we expect. I wonder if we're like leaking memory at all though. I always worry about that. Let's see here. U16. No. Yeah, that's the part I didn't particularly like, was keeping it by active name. And your new camera had to have that specific name too. Sorry for the pause there, guys. But yeah, it was a bit strange to me. I think the current camera, you should be able to say, okay, here's the resource for active cameras, and there's just like a set on it, and you pass it a camera entity. That's all you should have to do. But then that brings up other questions like how do you know if it's a 2D camera or 3D camera or UI camera? So you could still set that, like the type of camera on the camera like entity itself, like as a component or something. Yeah, it's really strange that the name of the camera has to be aligned to something that the renderer expects too. Like, it just kind of throws it out the window of like having a editor where you can name the camera something, and but I mean we're not anywhere close to having an editor built for Bevy yet, so I guess that's not a big deal. Just a little different from how I guess some of the other game engines work. But yeah, I just it definitely worked like that, but yeah, I wasn't a fan. And then I had a bug that I ran into where either because I was switching the currently active camera and changing the visibility at the same time, or maybe it was just changing the visibility between two different game states. It caused Bevy to crash hard. So nasty like crash. So I'm trying to rewrite things where you enter a game state, you spawn everything you need, and then when you leave that game state, either it gets destroyed or it basically better cleanup code. And I'm slightly worried about the performance of that. It seems like it's fairly fast to spawn up entities, and the textures and stuff should already be loaded by Bevy ahead of time with the code that I've written. So it should be fine. But if we have a lot of entities on our map view, for example, maybe that becomes an issue later on. I don't know. But right now we're not clearing out as much of the map stuff as what we probably could be. The map view stuff is what we could be doing. But yeah, like right now we spawn the, like, here's like an enemy, for example. And I think the goal is to have a child entity on the enemy and swap out what it's currently rendering depending on what game state you're in. And I want to think of a good way of doing that, because we need something that's going to be reusable and not something that we're going to have to implement for each different enemy type that we come across, and or if it's not an enemy, if it's something else, maybe like have like a specific way of doing this. Yeah, some sort of component that handles that. Game state, just reading what you wrote here. Yeah, so essentially, like, for example, we have a game state of loading, and we just have a system that checks to see if you're loaded or not, and if you are, then it swaps over to game state generating. And game state is just, that's just the name I came up with. I think you can call it whatever you want. It's just some sort of state represented by like an enum. Or even a component. I don't think it necessarily has to be an enum. It just makes sense as an enum for me. But yeah, and then we swap over, and then you have like system sets. So you can run like a particular system when you enter a state, or whenever it updates, or on exit. There's a few other ones too that I haven't used yet. Actually, quite a few. On pause, I'm not sure how to pause a state, but apparently that's a thing. And I'm not sure what that is yet. Yeah, there's quite a few here. On in stack update, on inactive update, on resume, and then you have like with run criteria, which lets you like run systems based off of a certain like condition, which we were trying to use at first, but that didn't work out very well. But yeah, one of the downsides of the state right now is I tried to nest it and be like smart about it. Like I had a playing state, and then like I was like, okay, let me have some additional state inside of that, like playing map view, playing battle view, and yeah, Bevy doesn't work like that. You can't do nested states yet. Yeah, I ran into some issues with the run criteria where it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't how I expected it to behave in some cases. But yeah, overall, it seemed like it was really useful for like very simple things, and I think I was trying to use it for something a little bit too complicated. I was trying to have like a a condition where it only updated some systems based off of a predetermined like time step, and then also sort of have these sort of dependencies with each other. Like it just didn't work out very well. I think there was some limitation with that it didn't work right. I don't remember exactly, but yeah. Alright, back to it. Yeah, so it seems to be working pretty well right now, but like our map objects that aren't associated with the tile map are still sticking around. So we can sort of see like the player. The camera moves, so you can't really see it, but if it was on screen, you would be able to see the player on the screen still. And that's because we're not actually removing the player sprite or the enemy sprites when we switch that game state. We still need to keep like the player. Actually, I think the player we did end up changing. Yeah, because we have spawn player and then spawn player battle view. How did we actually despawn the map sprite though? I don't remember that. I think the answer to that is we didn't. And how we want to do that is we want to despawn all of the children on the entity when we switch states. We want to do it in a generic way, so I think we need like a new component that just keeps track of like what it's basically like a match of like this is your state and this is the entity that's associated with that state. And then it just deletes the entity and any sub entities on it if you change states. One thing I would like to see, and maybe there's a way of doing it, but like I want like an on enter or on exit any scene. I could just write a system that checks to do that, but I don't know if there's like a system set command that lets me do that. After and before. But yeah. On enter specifically requires you to pass it some state. But yeah, okay, so where do we want to put this component? Probably on game state, I think. Do we want to just have game state be the component? Probably not, because we don't always want to attach an entity to it. What should we call it? Be a good name for this. Game state rendering the Do I have to despawn entities? Or is there like a way I can mark it like to be invisible? I could I mean, I know there is visible, but that caused a bug before, so I don't want to go down that route right now. But yeah, essentially we have some sort of entity. I could even an event could fit, yeah. I'm just trying to think, like, we need to define like all the different things here sort of generically. Like when we create this, we need to be able to say like, here's how you create this particular entity. How do we do that? It's not easy doing that generically. We could make this a trait. That takes like an on spawn or has a spawn that returns an entity. Something like that. Why doesn't it like entity though? Oh, right. That's it. It's been so long since I've done a trait, I don't remember the syntax. I'm sure it's something like this though. Maybe you don't say what it returns. Anyways, destroy. Which takes an entity. Actually, destroy we probably could just do without. We just need to know how to create it. And then we'd have some generic things that we pass in to create it. Like obviously you'd need command. But probably like this since we're passing it in. And then we need all the texture stuff that goes along with creating a sprite. Yeah. This isn't like the ideal way of doing it, but I think it'll work. I need to go look up the trait documentation so I can remind myself how this works. It is a semicolon. See? But of course now it works. It's fixed. Alright, that looks fine to me, except we're also going to need, in some cases, like the battle view for example, we'll need, there's the player. We'll also need the texture atlases asset. And we should have everything we need for creating the rendering part of components. For now, anyways. Let's see. Back to game state. Alright, and then we can have some sort of system. Spawn. on rendering. I think it's just like that though, actually. Materials. This one is mute at the beginning. Res mute. I like to vocalize when I'm typing sometimes, because otherwise I type what's not in my head, like what's in my head, and that might not be what I'm actually typing. So like I might be thinking about like what to do next instead of thinking about what I should be typing, and then I'll like start writing what I should do next. That makes sense. Just weird brain things. Alt plus left to go back to the previous line. Is that what it is? Yeah, that's not what it is in Windows. Oh, okay, we also need a query here. I'll call it. Let's call it query. It's the only query we're gonna have here for now. And then we have to make some like additional things just to help us out here. Because we're actually gonna need the call to get the entity later on. And in which case this actually doesn't need to return an entity like I thought it did. Because we don't care about it once we spawn it. We just need to know later on what it is so that we can delete it. Since this is a trait, you can't actually have like a data on the trait, but we can have a function that returns the data that we need, that they have to implement on that whatever uses the trait. So I remember that about traits at the very least. And I think this is failing because I'm doing it wrong. I still haven't memorized Bevy's syntax here. That looks right to me. Is it because it's a trait though? It cannot be made into an object, right? I didn't think about this. I can't use a trait here. Oh yeah. Usually if I control click somewhere, I can, like for example here, I can hit I got a button on my mouse for it, but yeah. I could box it, yeah, it was just thinking that could work. Means when I create it, I have to box it too though, right? Needs to be like dynamic too or something. I forget how this works. Training entity. Huh? That's weird. Okay. Huh. Is entity Sized? I don't even know. Do that. I don't think that's the answer. Right. Send plus sync. Is self here the entity? And then you need to do this, right? Like where... Trying to remember how to do this. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I'm sure somebody's talked about this before. I need to see an example of it. Is it just a colon like this? Man, I just get like C# vibes when I think of that. Okay, it's complaining about the entity still. Constraining spawn. Why? Oh, really? Just component? Oh, right. Man, I always forget these things. Well, in this particular case, it would have to be and mute self, right? Because we're gonna save the entity on it. And I think I still need to box it. If I can type it right. Rendering, there we go. Yeah, still needs to get boxed. Hey, there we go. Alright, now to understand it. I think I get this part where we're basically saying it's send plus sync plus static. That makes sense to me. And the component just has those, so we're just kind of reusing that. The self-sized here on the entity. I don't get. What is sized again? Like, is entity a constant size? That's what is confusing to me. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay. Well, I guess that makes sense then. Right, yeah. Okay, and then in here, let's see. We'll have a, yeah. I should come up with a better name. I'm just not happy with that name there. Game state rendering. Entity rendering state. Okay, that's better. Yeah, that does make sense to me. That what you're saying there. I'm just thinking for a second because I think I wanna change this slightly. Yeah, I use TypeScript all the time at work, so strictly typed languages have been a thing for me for a while. But I used to work in just pure JavaScript for the longest time, and that was hell. I think the thing I like about Rust the most, though, is that the compiler tries to like explain to you most of the time in a reasonable way what you did, like why what you did was stupid, like why it's like failing to compile. It doesn't always do that. Like some of it isn't as clear as what it could be, but it's like vastly better than any other language I think I've ever used before. All right, anyway, so we're spawning the entities here, and we're doing this when game state changes. But I think what I also want to pass into here is the game state so that we can match the game state and spawn the correct thing. I'll just pass a reference to it in there. And actually, I'm gonna move that to the front because I like putting things I have to add later at the end. I'm here right now, so I might as well order this something more sane. This needs to be current. What is it? Not current. Oh, it is current. Okay. I think that's a reference, yeah. Yeah, well, and then that's the thing, like, I was working with a lot of C# in my spare time, like with Unity and some other game engines like Xinko and just X and A way back in the day, and like a lot of different stuff. And then like my buddy was like, "Oh, let's do some C++ game dev with OpenGL," and I was like, "Okay, whatever. I want to learn. Like, I want to get like more low level." And then I realized how like awful C and C++ are. Like, just truly awful. Not that the languages are fundamentally bad. It's just that the experience that you have in them is bad, because when you do something that is dumb, which quite frankly I do a lot, you're not going to get anything helpful back from the compiler to tell you what you did. Like what you did was like why what you did was dumb. You're gonna spend like hours researching like why is this going bad? Like why is my memory like completely leaking? I don't understand. And then you find like the code like 10 hours later, like this one like little small line that you like missed. It's just like, oh, come on. One typo. I don't know. I still think C is the issue I had with C wasn't necessarily the memory management, because I went back to C after Rust, and I think that helped me understand like what I was doing a lot better, if that makes sense. Like I had like a firmer grasp of how memory was working and what not to do, because I had all this like experience with Rust being like, hey, you're an idiot. This is why. Don't do that. So like jumping back to C wasn't that bad, but the experience with like the tooling, specifically like a package manager that just doesn't exist for C, and the fact that like the build systems are so archaic, that's another thing that kind of makes me not like C. It's just it's a pain to get set up, and then if you don't touch it for a while and then you come back later, it's a pain to get running again. It's just not fun. Okay, destroy render rendering entities. I think that makes sense there. And then for this one, we just need the commands and the games. We don't even need the game state. Just the commands and the query. And then we can loop over the same query and just call well, not exactly like that, but something similar. We're gonna have to use commands. I think it's also despawn recursive. Does despawn recursive despawn the entity? Yes, and its children. Okay. No. I think because we screwed ourselves here. Let me say it's static instead. I don't know if that's gonna work, but see. Well, yeah, and trying to use the library and then trying to use the library that works with your C standards, like compiler flags, is like another nightmare. Like my buddy likes C89C for some reason, and just pisses me off how like, oh, I found this cool library, but it's C99. Can't use it. Can't use it at all because it's like without editing like this massive single header file library that's like No, no, thank you. I'm good. Implement something myself at that point. Oh yeah, we don't need mutable object there. How do I spawn this? Since it's what? Oh, I just implement it and then spawn a normal one. That's right. Do I have to box it though when I spawn it? I have to box whatever I create. That whatever implements our entity rendering state trait. I think I have to box it, right? Let's try it out on enemy first. Wait, is this how I want to do it? Yeah. This isn't how I do it. This is how I do it. Excuse me for just 1 second while I clean this up. Getting to like get my head out of the TypeScript thought process. It's been hard today to do that. Alright, and then we can... Oops, that's not what I wanted. Implement missing members, there we go. Copy, cool, that's what I like to see. And then, we want to actually spawn our stuff here. How do we associate it with the parent entity though? We need something else to like grab the parent like entity. That should be doable. And back here we just... Oh wait, I'm an idiot. We don't care about the parent there. We only care about it in here. So you can store it on that struct. Okay, yeah. And then here we do parent. What is it? And dot entity parent. Children. I forget what that's called. The parameter in there is called child builder. Yeah. Should be fixed. And then our child builder spawns bundle, essentially this. Without the map view though. And then we need to transform on the parent. Question, do you know if you need a rendering object attached to that entity for the transform to trickle down to its children? Yeah, I don't know either, so guess we're gonna find out though. And in some cases we'll need to call spawn anyways. Like from this particular case, like we still need to spawn the children. Oh, we still have to spawn this too. Let's do that next. Like initially it should have those children. Maybe we should pull that out into its own function. I think that probably makes sense. Like spawn enemy renderer. Like this should just be spawn enemy now. And oh, we also need to make this optional because we're not gonna have one all the time. Right, we'll always have a parent though. How do we get the parent from here? We insert it later. I might be getting a little too complex with this. I do need the global transform though too. Let me add that as well. This seems so weird. Like itself is creating a component that's it's like it's creating a component that stars itself. It's just strange, but I don't know. Maybe that doesn't make sense right now. Parent. Oops. We should have it new. we can just do new here and pass the enemy entity. Again, that seems really weird. And then we want to essentially call this code here. So we're gonna split it out. And then I need to pass the render entity back. Actually, thinking about this, I think I want to do it like this. And then we can just call this dot spawn. Oh, we'll need game state. Oh, but we can assume the game state because we are in the map view when we're creating these enemies. Commands, texture atlases is the only thing we're gonna need. Wait, so by default we spawn the map view game state. Oh, of course. I should make that copyable or something so I don't have to pass a reference in. But another time. Oh, I just need to pull that back up. Okay. So yeah. And actually, I want to pull this into here as well. And have a switch. Well, there we go again, TypeScript. I'll switch a match. There we go. And then just do nothing for everything else. Yeah, there we go. For right now. Oh man, this seems like it's so messy right now, but I think it should work. Okay, and then this is let's just remove that completely. Spawn enemy. Oops. Oh, it's not gonna let me pull that in. Come on. IntelliSense, why do you fail me? Okay, and then we're gonna need texture. This is Pass that then. Alright, and if we run this now, literally nothing should change. Except maybe our... Like, we should still see, like, spiders spawning, I guess is what I'm saying. Without changing anything. Hey, nice, look at that. Oh, we never boxed it, though. We gotta do that. I mean, it didn't matter because we haven't implemented, like, we haven't started using these systems anywhere. But yeah. Alright. Same result, I think. Yeah, there we go. Sweet. And then if I press P, that still works. Although, we need to change the camera code too to do something similar. Because it doesn't remember where the camera position was. And we can solve that, that's easy enough. But cool, so those are like essentially segmented off based off of game state. I really wish there was like a better way of doing this in Bevy. Like built into Bevy, I mean. I'm sure there's a better way of me doing it in Bevy. Like, without a trait and without so much weird code. But, like just having like a proper like scene manager. Like here are the entities that are in the scene. And then when you switch scenes, clear them all out. Again though, that wouldn't match exactly what we need to do because we'd still have to keep track of like, these are the rendering entities versus these are the other entities. Warlord 2, I haven't heard of that game. At least, I don't think so. It's pretty similar looking, yeah. I'll give you that. I wonder what the gameplay is like because, just looking at that map kind of makes me think, oh wow, that's basically what I'm doing. But I have a sneaky suspicion it's like a little different. Yeah, essentially, I don't know if you've seen any of the previous streams, probably not, but the idea is that we're going to slowly but surely create a game where you sort of island hop, and when you reach a new island, your main objectives are to find like obviously better gear and equipment, but also provisions to get to the next islands. So it's kind of like Oregon Trail. Yeah, this isn't gonna be turn based, it's gonna be real time where it's just constantly like sort of moving forward. You can pause though, so it's kind of turn based in that aspect where you can sort of take a break and then like change things up and then continue on. I haven't figured out all the mechanics that I want to use yet, but essentially you'll travel around like the roads around the island. And right now, excuse sort of the messy roads, they're like the first iteration of roads that I've ever done, so they're a little messy. And yeah, so essentially you travel around the island and there will be different enemies, maybe like a dungeon that you can go inside of to find better loot and stuff like that. And then once you reach basically the end of the trip around the island. It'll always be around the island, sort of, where you end up where you started, essentially. And you can make another trip, but then it gets successfully harder. Successfully harder? It gets success. Yeah, successfully? Is that the right word? Success. Oh man, my brain is frying right now. But anyways, it gets harder as you get each time you go around the island. It'll get like you awaken more monsters that are on the island, so that like new ones will appear and it'll get harder. And the one of the things is like you might travel around an island once and you might not find what you need. Like maybe you need like some food, some more food, and you only found like maybe 2 or 3 food, and it's not enough to get to the next island. So you're gonna have to travel around again. But it's gonna be harder. You're gonna like maybe get hurt more, maybe even like lose some people along the way. Um, Successively. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, too much coding today. 8 hours of work and then however long I've been streaming for now. Hour and 33 minutes, so. uh, but yeah, so that's the general game idea. And then like the goal is to sort of reach like a new home. So you're kind of like a ship of um, settlers traveling to like a new home on the seas. But yeah, that's the sort of the game idea. I like it. I don't think it's been done before. It's like a lot of like Oregon Trail vibes, but also I don't know if you've seen Loop Hero, but it has some sort of inspiration from that as well. But without the sort of building aspect of Loop Hero. Alright, so let's see if we can actually like destroy and recreate the enemies. Oh, but the thing is that we don't want to always do. Let's just do it for the map view for right now. For the battle view, that's gonna have to work a little differently because we're gonna have to know like specifically what enemies need to get generated. And so we'll write something different for that part. But for this I think will work fine. The question is, how do we get it to run? I'm gonna cheat and do something like this. Oops. That's not the right one. Game state. There we go. System. This isn't as like nice as what I would like. I would like to only run it when the game state changes, but I mean we're gonna do that. But what I mean is like I only would like the system to run when the game state changes. But we're gonna just run the systems all the time and then check for game state changes. I think I have a previous game state somewhere. Is there a previous in here though? Is changed. I don't know what that means. There's no. Oh, Alright, hey, that works. Since the last time the system ran. Today I learned. Let's see if it actually does what it says though. I think I want commands to be at the top. And then resources with resources, and then queries with queries. Just for my own sanity. Oh man, I really kind of am curious if that worked or not. The way to find out is just start with debugging. It's kind of hard to visually see, but let's see. Destroyed. These. Alright. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's working. Because I'm not seeing the commands here. This question is why. We threw a box around this, and it's an entity that exists on our enemy entity thing. So that should be fine. Let's see if the system's even running. Because maybe the is change isn't working like we thought it was. Oh wow. Yeah, that system is not working right. Returns true if and only if this resource has changed since the last execution of this system. We determined that was a lie. It's literally like constantly spawning and respawning. Well, not really, because it's not even getting inside of our query. Which means that this box dynamic thing isn't working right. For some reason. Okay, but I do think I had a different way of checking if the game state changed. I just have to find where I put that code. I had some sort of component that kept track of what the previous game state was. I thought. I might have gotten rid of it. I think I got rid of it. Let's add it back. And we can do that really simply by having a type. Man, that's not gonna work either. Thinking about it. Uh, that's less handy. Let me look at the cookbook. There's got to be something that tells you the state like has changed like overall. Oh yeah, this was the thing. You can't combine run criteria with state for some reason. It's silly. And then there's an issue with the input. That was easy enough to fix. But yeah. Is there no way of having a system that just runs whenever and like any state changes? State stack? Is it that? I mean, I already looked at that before, so maybe I missed something though. Like I know you can do it for each individual one. Like you can do like an on enter for each individual one. But I want to know for overall like what the previous one was. Or like that's for not having to remove all entities? I don't think I follow. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Except in this case, our entities are like rendering things, and this doesn't stop them from rendering. So. If I didn't have to get around the is visible bug, then it wouldn't have been a problem. I could just use the system that I had to set everything to is visible true or false. Actually, I think that was the thing that originally. Yeah, but we had something here that checked the target game state. That's right. Alright, we're gonna cheat a little here though. More cheating because I'll just ask on Discord later. There has to be a way of like having a system run whenever the state changes, like regardless of what it changes to. But for right now, we can just do. Maybe I'm not sure what a render later is in Bevy, so that might be possible though. If I have like two different entities, for example, two different sprites, right? And they're separate entities. And one's on render layer 1 and the other one's on render layer 2. Will they both render or only like whatever the camera's set to? Oh, huh. Maybe that's exactly what I want. Uh, um, oops, game state. Still need to check to see. here if it matches or not. That's not gonna work. But okay, let's look at render layers. So in this case, I would only have to create or destroy a camera based on off of the render layer. How do you specify like on the entity that's being rendered what render layer it's on? If that makes sense. Oh, I see. You apply this literally to the camera and to the entities. Oh. Okay. Alright. That probably makes way more sense than what I'm doing here. I didn't realize that existed. It'd be helpful if the cookbook went into that. Maybe it does and I miss it. Is it? Nope. Mostly it just goes into ECS stuff. Yeah, I think it says here that entities without this component belong to layer 0. An entity with this component without any layers is invisible. So I'm guessing you create a new component with a layer number, and it's a part of that layer, if that makes sense. You can even have a render layer that belongs to all the different layers, which is cool. So like if you have like a UI camera, maybe not the best example, but if you have a UI camera and you want it to render on all the different layers, you could do that. Yeah, ECS is nice. I like it, but I don't want it to be a focus on what I'm doing. Alright, so we just did all this for nothing, kind of. I'm not saying we should completely give up on the idea, but maybe render layers isn't going to work, so we'll just keep that in the back of our mind for right now. And we will move this code into just directly into here with children. Oh, I guess I copied the with children, didn't I? There we go. Now we don't care about game state anymore. I want to get back to like the gameplay aspect of things, like where we have enemy health and stuff and that kind of thing. But we're fine. We're doing okay. We can do this. Alright, get rid of these here. Okay. Now we should be back to where we were before. Yeah, for starting a new game. But I already have stuff set up for that, so. Okay, cool. So I think the easiest thing to change first is going to be player, since that kind of already does this sort of switching back and forth. The old way, the original way that I did it last time, I guess yesterday. Actually, I cheated, that's right. Okay. We want this to with children, child builder. Right, and if I understand this right, we can copy this code here into here as well. We're gonna have to change to use the child builder. Okay, so we created both, but then we want to insert this render layer onto both of these. Layer? Say the battle layer, the battle view's layer 1, and then up here, this one is layer 0. Okay, we need this here. And what's the camera's default render layer? 0? Let's find out. We create the camera in a really weird spot right now. Or we did. We changed that though. Where did we move that? To map view here. Yeah. So we shouldn't have to destroy anymore. The camera, anyways. Although we kind of have to anyways. We'll just keep that for right now, because we're calling spawn whenever we enter a map view state. So, but here we can insert render layers, layer 0. And then in the battle, there's a camera here. Okay, and if this works right, we should see like some things not appear on the battle screen. Like the background shouldn't show up because I didn't add a render layers to that. Oh, this is that error I got before. Great. Yeah, like it can't create, it can't find the associated texture view for that binding. I don't know why. I didn't really try to look into it too much. But yeah, that was what I was trying to avoid yesterday. When I was just switching is visible back and forth between true or false. Uh, okay, alright, so what if our camera doesn't have a render layer? Here, does it still error? No. Okay. So it's associated with that render layer then. The error. Oh crap. Now I have to like look up render layer here. Mm, Nobody has said anything about render layers. So it's just been broken for a long time. Maybe. Or just like nobody uses it. Issues too. This is a bit sketchy. That's not something you want to see in a PR. I wonder if this is what caused the it's visible to fail too. It seems like it. Let's see what changed. Well, this is really like simple though. I don't think it is the reason why the WGPU is failing. Yeah, I think so too. The question is, can I fix it? I didn't want to have to do this, but it seems like if I fix this bug, it's gonna be easier on my life. Not check out clone. Okay, how much stuff do we break if we switch over to main? Hopefully not a lot. The release wasn't that long ago. Seriously, open folder. Well, I did create an issue. I searched pretty hard the other day when I came across it. I did create an issue. Here. You can kind of see what I was doing before, where I was just swapping as visible. But yeah. I mean, just looking at the visible entities code, I don't see how it would affect the bindings. Unless Bevy is setting up WGPU to expect that there's a certain order to things. That doesn't seem like it would make sense though. Because, I mean, all this really does is just... This is just for sorting and, that kind of stuff. But all it does in that renderer is if it's visible, then it continues. With the code, or if it's not visible, it continues. Sorry. There's also the stuff about not matching the pass. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to find the shortcut here. So. Well, we have a bunch of new compilers, but the original error was... Goodness. Lost in the stack. Alright, hold on one second. Actually, let's do that first. Otherwise, we're not gonna get a... Oh, there we go. Wow, that happened right away that time. Without us changing the... which stuff was active, huh? But yeah, it fails in the WGPU code on where it tries to get the texture views for this particular binding, and it can't. Yeah. It's an invalid texture ID for some reason. If I remember how this works right, like resources is just like a flat hash map of, like, texture views is just like a hash map of like all the different textures. There's not really much that's complicated with it. Yeah. Seems weird that in all of our texture views it can't find this texture. I wonder if it's not loaded? I don't actually check the other sprites to see if they're loaded or not. But I do load them in the where's that get loaded? There's I thought it was in loading. I have to clean up this code. Yeah. There's a setup function here. It loads the entire textures folder. Well, but it's a texture though, which is the confusing part, because hold on, let me go back to the code here. It's a texture view, which should already exist if the texture is loaded in. Unless it's doing it on the fly. I don't think Bevy unloads and loads textures depending on what's visible though. Like it's not sending data to the GPU based off of visibility in regards to textures, is my understanding, but could be wrong. Yeah, it's failing in create bind group, update bind group. And we can see like what that does, I guess. Okay. Yeah, see, I think it has to do with the camera bindings. Like, perhaps the texture ID it's referring to is not a like a texture I'm loading in, but maybe it's like the frame buffer texture. Because it updates the bind groups. Like the active camera has bindings, and it updates the active camera's bindings, bind groups. Is Rust Analyzer dead? that's why. Alright, like why do the cameras have bindings? Like for the cameras have bindings for the orthographic projection matrices. They shouldn't have any bindings for textures. Unless a camera has, like each camera has its own frame buffer. That doesn't seem right though. The frame texture should be associated with the window, not the camera. But yeah, we're failing on a texture, which is strange. And it's failing in update binder group. Resource bindings. Enter resource bindings. Update bind group. What is calling update bind group? Draw context, set bind groups from binding internal. Yeah, so see, these are the things that are associated with what's drawing on the screen. Oh yeah, that's fine. Thank you for watching. So, I know you're in Europe, so it's probably getting pretty late over there. But yeah, this is definitely blocking me, but I think I'll figure it out. What? Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching. I'm pretty noob when it comes to streaming, but I'm trying to do it to motivate me to get stuff done. So, didn't really want to have to be editing Bevy though, but you do what you have to. In fact, I am gonna go on Discord right now. Under help. What is the best way of handling entity visibility based off of state? I've tried using is visible and let's see what's the new thing we're using. So there it was in player. Yeah, I'm trying not to change Bevy. So, trying not to. Half-Life 2 style console. I like that. Oh. Anyways, hopefully somebody on help answers. I feel like this is probably a good place to end the stream. I don't feel like I'm gonna get much farther today. We could just keep going down the creating and destroying all the rendering components and entities. But yeah. I don't know. It seems like there's a better way of doing this, and it's just we can't use it because of this bug. So alright, we're gonna not change the camera. Okay. One thing that we should do is trajectory Bevy test. Seriously, why do I need a GitHub auth token to download something? Doesn't make sense. Alright, oh, one thing I didn't check is if there's a render layer example. Don't think there is. Is there like a camera? No. Okay, so basically we're just gonna try to reproduce it here. We're gonna need a setup function. Okay, and then how does it load? Where's it gonna look? Well, this particular example is gonna look in assets here. So I need a new folder called assets, root, and then a new image file. Oops. Code. Sure, that tree will work fine. Okay, so that should just be a simple such a bummer. It's gonna be fine. We're gonna fix this. Or at least find a workaround. It's good to have like a simple project like that, then I can attach it and then more people can help out because it's not this gigantic game that I've been working on for 8 days. Yeah. Wish that Rust didn't take so long to compile. It's not that long, but it's still long enough to get slightly irritating. You're building something new. Alright, cool. That worked. And then we want to just add startup system, setup.system. And that should just give us a simple tree sprite that we can then work with. Alright, so now we need like insert render layers, layer 0. Do the same here. And then do this all over again. Oops. Wait. Huh? Alright, there we go. Alright, now we should... Now we should be all set. Okay, but we do need to see how we load that in. Just copy that whole line there. Think like Rust. Think like Rust. Come on. There we go. Interesting, this doesn't crash. Same behavior as before, except we're not able to get it to crash. Why? Why not? That's the exact same thing as we're doing in our code base here. Almost. Except we have a lot more stuff here. And this code base basically crashes like instantly. No, oops. Not instantly, but as soon as we hit that P button and switch states, which is where we switch cameras. So let's try, I guess, switching cameras. Switch camera. We'll need a query. Camera. Make just the camera. Oh, well. The entity for the camera is what we want. Nah, man, let's not do it like that. Let's have a new resource. Struct cameras. A camera. Entity. B entity. ID. Let. Oh, oops. Let B equals. Let A equals. A and B. Alright, and then camera. A, B. How do we switch the cameras again? Guess right now we're just destroying and adding a new camera. Oh, are we? That doesn't sound right. Oh, we're just not even rendering a camera. Cool. There. So we were there for like half a second. Just died. I think what we want is to replicate what we're sort of doing here. Is something more like this. And then down here we do if cameras active, spawn that, else spawn 0. And that's entity and entity cameras dot respawn. What? Delete it. Why? It came back. Oh, I see. Shoot. Close all of that. Try again. Alright. There we go. Oh, it works, of course. Dot despawn. It's not despawn, it is despawn. But we want the recursive one though. Just in case. I don't think we have parent-child relationships, but maybe. Okay, so that should swap between these two things. And we probably want, like, for it to be a good test, we'll want to have a second image here. Let's see, let's grab a different image. Not those. What's this arrow? There you go. Arrow underscore 1.ping. Okay, so if I hit P, oh man, that works. So what am I doing differently? Just like way more of them, maybe? Like if I do this in like a loop, or I in 0 to 100, and we bring in rand 0.8, and we say transform equals transform dot XYZ, I think is what it is. Reader's still doing something there. Vec3. We need something else. We need all that stuff. Okay. Now we just do num.gen range. I don't know, 300 to 300. Sure. Sounds right. Expected one argument. Oh, right. It's a range. And from XYZ doesn't exist because it's from XYZ. Without the vec 3. I think that worked. I don't think we just have to actually put it on the sprite bundle. Man, no errors again, and that's a lot of sprites. Which makes me confused and possibly wondering if it's our tile map. Oh, let's do the same thing for the other. I cheating? Yes. Cloning a handle is fairly cheap, I imagine. Okay, so obviously render layers works fine and it's not causing an issue, even though we're quickly swapping between two different cameras. I think there's no issue at all there. It's just ridiculous. We even create entire new cameras there, just like we do here. The tile map is code that genuine, like, actually causes maybe an issue here. I could see that possibly being a problem, since it's outside of the standard Bevy stuff. So if we don't spawn the map entity, what does that look like? Bam. We have a lot of systems that expect there to be a tile map, and when there's not, nothing happens. We don't get any crashes though. But likewise, our player doesn't show up, and we can't actually switch to the battle map for some reason. Why not? We're spawning a new camera. Oh! We need a render layer. Layer 1. But not like that. We need to insert it into here, because the bundle doesn't expect it. Okay, I think that's related to the sprite rendering. This one, our background sprite. Definitely isn't rendering. Why? Has a renders layer of 1. Camera's a 1. Oh, right, because we're not despawning the other camera. Okay, so we can do that too now. No, we do despawn it. Great camera despawn. Or destroy. Are we running this code? Yes. Alright, so we're not actually getting to this spawner here. Because why? That happens in input. because we wanted to set the location of the battle. Events would work much better here, I think, but this is okay for now. So what got here? Question mark? We should get here, and then I think we're not gonna get to the battle view. Well, we're not gonna get there if we keep running into that crash. Weird. Why? I think because we're crashing hard. Oh, I know. Alright, we never hit this. Oh, we don't want it there though. Oh, yeah, no, that would be fine actually. Essentially, we were only setting it if we had a timeout. We don't have a timeout. Man. I'm tired. Alright, player. Map. And we can switch between them. And there's no issues. No crashes. We're doing it rapidly. Oh, it's the tile map that's actually causing the issue. And the tile map that we have isn't going to respect. Oh man, it's not going to respect any of the render layers. But removing the tile map seems to have removed the issues. Although sometimes when we compile, we still crash. Why? This seems to be related to the same issue. In this particular case, we are still actually creating that tile map, but we're not spawning any of the components for it. Perhaps it's because we're setting the sampler to something different? What happens if we don't do that? I'm still not sure why that would cause an issue when we were switching to the battle view. I still think something wonky's going on there. Okay, we switched to the battle view and we got a crash. I am almost like 89% sure now that we're not waiting for as much stuff as we should be waiting for to load. How do we get all the texture handles? Like this. Asset. Texture. Asset. Question mark? Texture. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to change this here. Asset. Asset. Server. What do we do over here? Get group load state. Oh yeah. Handles. Okay. So now we need to get the handles tile textures. Let's try to rename this something better. Iterate. Map. Something. I don't know what it is. Handle ID. Handle ID. Texture ID. We just want the handle IDs. And then we need to collect that. Of course, it's gonna not know what the type is because it's dumb. It's not dumb, it's just it can't infer the type, so we have to help it. Okay, handle ID is, if we look at this, it's handle ID T. ID. I think we can just say, oh, it's handles though, handle ID. Yeah. So we're mapping to handle ID. Oh, hold on. Iterator, what does this give me? Okay, yeah, I see now. Hey, it can infer the type when, maybe? Okay, yes, it did infer the type, right? And now we just need to do equals loaded. I'm going to bring in load state. Consider specifying the type argument. Why though? Item equals handle ID. Isn't just item equaling handle ID enough? Come on. It should be enough. Heck, they didn't, they just mapped. They didn't even collect. Get rid of this collect. That's the issue. And that can just be underscore. There we go. Alright, so maybe now it'll actually wait until all of our textures are loaded. The question is, why does it freak out sometimes? And I think that was our issue all along, is that the textures were just not like loading. In our other example though, obviously the textures did load. Was it just because the size difference? Like the background texture, which should still load all the time, but the background texture is huge. It's 1920 by 1080 pixels, so it's a fairly beefy thing to load in. Okay, no, we're still getting there. Man, I don't know what's causing that. It seems like we aired less though. Whoa. Option unwrap none. What? But we're waiting for those to load, so how could it be? Oh, technically we're not waiting for those to load anymore. My bad. Okay, so we still need to call that too. And let Git has map assets. Crud. Alright. Maybe that was why it was failing. Because the tile map atlas handles are a little different. Those are atlases. Okay, except we just immediately crashed when we switched again. But now we don't crash. Even though we're switching a ton. This is definitely has to do with, like, something's not loading in right. To be this, like, sporadic of an issue. Like, that was not very often that it happened. That makes it hard to find out what the problem is. It doesn't happen all the time. Okay, another thing we can do is we can get rid of these checks, because didn't need to do that as much as what I anymore. Okay, let's turn back on the spawn map. And the reason why is because we want to know if it instantly crashes there. It does. Okay, okay. I have a theory now as to what's happening. We're still despawning some things. This actually might be related to despawning things rather than spawning things. Rather than visibility, I mean. So, let's screen. We're about to get real heavy. If you call spawn chunk again, does nothing if the chunk does not exist. Does it spawn a new chunk though if it already exists? Okay, so I was thinking maybe it was because we were calling despawn, and that doesn't seem to be the case. Oh, I wonder if it has to do it with our custom camera here. Custom orthographic matrix. Let's copy this over to here. And then instead of constructing just constructing the normal ones, we'll do custom orthographic camera bundle. So essentially, oh, why did we just lose everything? Interesting. Was that because I did the new orthographic cameras? No. These two cameras should be identical between the two, except... Oh, actually, move the custom orthographic camera. Do we set a size as none? What happens if size is none again? It just uses the width and height that's already there, right? That comes into the function, yeah. Well, that should work. Alright, let's take a look at what our half widths are. Just knowing the half width is probably fine. If that looks good, then we'll look at half height. Oh, right, nothing's gonna render because, sorry, jumping around a lot here. But because we have to register the type of the camera, A, and B, we have to add it to the system stage. Okay, and we got some errors. Import. Okay. Now it should work and maybe crash because we're using a custom orthographic projection. But no, it doesn't because the orthographic projection isn't the problem. We are narrowing this down. Slowly but surely. Even related to game state? Like, alright, let's take a very close look at what we do when we change game state. So on enter map view spawn system. Let's take a look there. What does this do? It spawns a camera with the layer 0. It sets the current camera. Wait, we have current camera code here? I don't think we use that anymore. Okay, but we're still setting it, whatever. And then we spawn chunks. Okay, that's not gonna cause any issues. Alright, next, destroy. We no longer despawn chunks here, which is fine. If we do despawn the camera, we don't do that. What happens? Interesting. It doesn't crash anymore. So I really think it has to do with how we're swapping cameras out. Here we're doing the same thing though, we're despawning the cameras. And we're doing it recursively, just like we do in the other code. Oh no. I'm gonna have to get a bot, aren't I? Alright, let's see. How do we ban you? Let's see. Wait, oh, no, not that. Ban. There we go. Hahaha. Power. This is mine. Alright, there we go. Okay, so I don't see anything there. Alright, but sorry, just getting distracted here. Okay, so map view destroy on exit. We looked at that, right? Yes. Movement on update, that's fine. This also runs in the battle view. How do we know that the camera we're moving is the right one? Oh, right, because the other camera's not gonna have movement. Okay, sorry. Continuing on. Clear battle screen. That was deleted. And I'm having a hard time finding anything wrong with this code. Which is not good. Wait a second here. This is... We should add this plugin code, not at the bottom here. Getting lost. My Windows, okay. I don't know if it makes a difference to the order things are running, but this should definitely be at the very top. Because if those aren't loaded, then instant crash again. Same error. No crash. It's just random when that actually happens. Back to the battle view. Okay, so the map view, we need to despawn that. This is like really frustrating when we're not sure what's causing it. And like, we're doing the exact same thing here. Spawning a new camera. Despawning the other one. Different layers. Lots of sprite entities. I think the number of entities is actually greater here. No errors. We're not even doing loading checking here, load state checking at all. I wonder if that's the issue. Like, we're not doing that weird state change, right? Like we're doing here. What if we add that in? Like, okay, now we have some game state, loading, playing. Very simple game state. And we add that in After this, insert, what is it, state, add state, loading. Okay, and then we add a system state to check whether or not we're loading. So we will just have a loading system. And then that loading system is basically going to do the same thing that this loading system does, except slightly different. Because we don't care about texture handles. Okay, so now we just need this part of the if statement. And then game state dot set game state playing. Okay, so that's essentially how we're doing this here, except for one thing. Set up game. Let's rename this to setup game, and then we're gonna have a new function setup, and then map mod. Just copy this load folder. Let's try to replicate what we're doing as much as possible. So we have a folder called textures. We're loading in that folder. Okay. That's a startup system. Let's move that up here. Okay. Setup system. Yeah. And then now we need some more state checking. So when we enter the state, we call setup game or whatever. Playing with system setup game dot system. Is that what it is? Yeah. Okay, and this system could just run all the time. Switch camera. Do I have to implement something for game state? I think I do. What is it? This stuff. And I think we also need default. Well, no. That should be good because we're setting what the default is. Oh, right. Asset server. Requested resource doesn't exist. Bevy test cameras. Ah, right. Because we need to do this essentially. On up. Okay, so that should just be the same sort of setup, kind of, that we have with the other tests. And again, no issues. It works as expected. We're switching between our two sprites. No issues at all. Perhaps this has to do with having like the animated sprite. What if we don't spawn that? Not sample empty range. What? Oh, actually, I know what that's from. Alright. No, we still error. Same error, right? Yeah. I wish I knew what texture that was that it's erroring with. And here, it's just like no error. Oh! Oh! Aha! We did it! We got an error. The same one. Okay, okay. That is good news. It doesn't happen all the time. How often is it gonna happen? Not often enough. Oh, there we go though. Okay, so it's very rare that it actually errors. So that's 1, 2, that we get an error. Okay, now we're almost consistently getting errors. That's funny. No error. Error. Okay, alright. I'm gonna end the stream for today, but we made good progress on figuring out what's causing the error. I know it doesn't look like it, but the first step in figuring out what the error is being able to reproduce it in a smaller example. Because it's smaller, it'll be easier to figure out what's going on with the code. Because this is a more condensed example, we can also check to see if our custom orthographic projection is causing an issue or not. In fact, why don't we double check to make sure that's not causing the issue. I don't think it is, but it's important that we check. Yeah, okay, so we still got the same error. So we can make this even simpler by removing that custom orthographic projection code. Delete that. Right. And then we'll just test again to see. Maybe it was because we had that system set. So, no, but no, we still crash. Good. That's what I like to do. Okay, so we have a real one file test that we can share. Alright, so we come back to our issues. I was able to reproduce using a much smaller example. one is assigned to it. Well, we have a much simpler example to showcase. The next thing we want to do is simple things like, let's narrow it down more. How can we narrow it down more? Well, it's pretty simple. Get rid of the for loop. Okay, so just keep narrowing down. I mean, it seems like all our issues are revolving around game state somehow interfering with what's rendering. Yeah, see? Doesn't matter if we have one tree or if we have many trees, we get the same error. And here's an example. Hey, it's working. Boom, it's not. Okay. Seems unrelated to the number of items in our game. The next thing we want to check is it related to loading and checking to see if it's loaded? What if we just jump right in? Don't wait for anything. Just jump right in there. Do we still get errors? No errors so far. So it seems like preloading assets causes issues. But yeah, so the load folder here, I'm not sure if it's because of that. Let's test. Let's see if we don't wait for those textures to be loaded. Just jump right in. Okay, so it seems to have to do with calling a load folder. I further narrowed this down to calling load folder. Alright, see? We've narrowed down our issue. So if we go back to our original code base now, and we know, okay, load folder is a like huge issue here. And we nix that. What happens? Okay, that's what we expected. Okay, so I thought I was doing something smart by preloading our textures. Hey, if we preload them, then when we're running the game and we're creating all these new entities all the time, it's not gonna like cause our game to jitter, right? Right? Huh? So I still expect sometimes we'll get it because of the load map, and you'll have to excuse some of the stuff not working anymore. Yeah, we did remove some of this stuff. Let's see. Despawn, bring it back. Okay, again, same thing. We can switch back and forth between our battle scene again without any crashes. You have no idea how happy that makes me. I mean, loading seems to be not an issue. Everything loads really quick. Even that big background texture. It's instantly switched over to that. I'm gonna do some transitions there though too. Oh, that's gonna be a whole nother project. Transition. We'll add the juice after we get some like playable game done though. Alright, so why isn't our Huntress sort of loading in though? Texture Atlas handle. Ah, it wasn't saved. That's why. Okay. Yes, finally. 0 crashes, 0 worry. I made that crash. That is super cool news. Okay. I think this is a great place to stop. We spent, how long has it been? 3 hours and 31 minutes on this one issue. We went like backwards a little bit, and then we went forwards, and then we went way back, and we went forwards again. But yes, do not attempt to preload your textures by calling asset server .load folder. Whatever you do, do not do that unless it's the tile map, because it's set up to handle that, I guess, somehow. Even though we waited for them to be loaded, it wasn't enough. That's so irritating. Alright. I'm gonna call the stream over. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will be back on Wednesday. I need to take a break tomorrow for my own sanity, but I will get this code pushed up. Day 8, it'll be under that tag, and then I'll get the video uploaded on YouTube as well. So I hope you enjoyed today's stream, and next time we will finally finish up this, and we'll use the render layers because that seems like a really good choice. So thank you to MTSR. Yeah, thank you so much to MTSR for that. It's really helpful. That suggestion. I didn't even know that existed. It's not in like the docs or anything, or there's an example, so it was something you kind of just had to know about, or read through the documentation, like the actual doc. Yeah, the code doc, not like the book. Yeah, it's not in the book. It's not in the cookbook. It's not in. There's not an example. It's only in the docs, which is in a hidden kind of way, if that makes sense. All right. So yeah, next time we will finish this up, and then we will work more on the battle view, getting like an event passed from sort of when we hit the battle view to pass some of the data that we need instead of using this sort of fake system from the input logic. Yeah, that's terrible. We gotta fix that up. Alright. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and like I said, I'll be back on Wednesday. Have a good evening. Bye.